is I think I talked about nutrition so much, and I talked about functional movements, and I talked about scaling and intensity so many times in blog posts that I was just like, yeah, people get it now. And you forget that it has to be a constant message, because while you and I might live and breathe CrossFit daily, medicine, whatever it is, this is 3 hours of someone's week.
Right.
So we do have to give them more tools to ingrain it into why it's important. So the education piece is huge.
This is episode 126, part B with Nicole Christensen. Welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Julie Fouché, family medicine resident and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring to you information and inspiration from experts and everyday individuals for how to use lifestyle to maximize health. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Pursuing Health. In this episode, I got to sit down with my very good friend, CrossFit affiliate owner, CrossFit headquarters seminar staff flow master, athlete, CrossFit Level 4 coach, and mom extraordinaire, Nicole Christensen. And we talked about all of the things. So many things, in fact, that I've decided to split our conversation into 2 parts. So if you haven't yet listened to part A, I'd recommend going back to listen to that one. This is part B, where we're going to do a deep dive into Nicole's own personal experience of incorporating CrossFit during pregnancy, as well as a process that she uses for working with countless pregnant athletes at CrossFit Roots and how she's developed this process over the years. So if you haven't yet heard part A, of course, go back and check it out. There we talk about Nicole's athletic background, her competitive career, as well as her experience opening and developing her CrossFit affiliate, CrossFit Roots, over the past 10 plus years, as well as some of the things that she's found to be helpful for educating her members and growing a thriving affiliate. Before we get started, this is a reminder that although I am now officially a doctor, this podcast is meant to share the experiences of individuals and does not provide medical advice. So with that, we'll get started with episode number 126, part B of Pursuing Health, featuring Nicole Christensen. So true. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about pregnancy because I'm just,
yes.
Because now you're the expert on pregnancy and CrossFit, which you laugh about, but it's true. You have a lot of experience, both yourself and coaching, but and also more selfishly because I'm not pregnant, but in the next few years, you didn't want to make an announcement on it. In the next few years, it's definitely on the radar.
Yeah.
So I know, like, obviously before you became pregnant yourself, you had coached many other women through their pregnancy. So, and then when you first became pregnant, kind of what were the resources or like the guidelines that you sort of tried to stick to as you're coaching them? And then once you went through it yourself, obviously it must have changed some things that you were doing.
I got better at, so I can talk about the guidelines. I know once I got pregnant and went through it myself, I got better at modifying to get women a great stimulus.
Okay.
And with keeping an eye on the intensity.
Got it. So because you could like feel it yourself and you knew what.
Yeah. Like, okay, so maybe box jumps didn't feel good for somebody. And so a lot of times people are like, well, let's just do step ups. Like it didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So then I'm sitting there and I would be like, well, now I'm doing this class workout and I came all the way here. I'm going through the mindset of like what one of the women that come to the gym, like, I made the effort to get here. Maybe I already have a kid and now I'm here doing step ups and I'm not even breathing at all. I can breathe a little bit, And so figuring out like, well, okay, we're going to be a little bit more strength biased because the intensity is going to come down. So let's do weighted step ups.
Okay.
And that'll help your posterior chain, which usually takes a little bit of a hit when you are a little more front loaded. Before that, there were 2 main resources.
Okay.
And one was Heather Bergeron had been pregnant and she wrote that she did a lot of hip extensions. And I was like, check. Cool. So I just remember, posterior chain doesn't get as much help because sometimes people aren't always squatting below parallel. I think that sort of, at the time that was the case. Not so anymore. And I squatted below parallel the whole time. We can talk about that because that's actually a really funny story.
Okay.
And then Sarah Spieler had also written some stuff, but it was sort of like just got passed around, you know,
just like
it was
anecdotal stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And then once I got pregnant, I realized that, a lot of it, and then I got a little bit smarter on the diastasis recti and how, you know, a lot of people think that's a bad thing. Well, it's a natural human process. It has to happen. Your abs have to separate. But what else is happening is that there's relaxin in your body. So the muscle fibers are stretchier, but it also means that like if you forcefully flex and extend, you can kind of like a rubber band when you overstretch it and it just won't go back. So you lose that elasticity. So basically we just said like, we're not going to kip. And so
that's kind of like a blanket rule you use for all of your.
That's all my athletes, no matter like first time pregnancy, anytime pregnancy. I also don't recommend that they kip or do flexion for like 3 months after.
Okay.
Because until they're checked and they got, all healed back together. I mean, pregnancy is actually the most beautiful example of progressive overloading. You know, so it's like, okay, you can't do a kipping pull up, which is going to spike your heart rate up and do flexion extension.
Like, what about the best weighted pull-up program ever?
Yeah. So let's, you know, even if you don't have a strict pull-up, right, you add a band and you're going to do, you know, we have it in our little guidelines. We say 1 strict pull-up for every 3 kipping pull-ups.
Okay.
And so, yeah, they might be a little bit slower through that section. No, they won't be slower. The time that it takes them to complete that, but they just won't be breathing as hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So no kipping.
So, yeah, no kipping. What else? So this is something, you know, in the CrossFit criticism space for pregnant women, you know, there's like, well, they don't, you know, women don't know how to protect their baby. I'm like, all right, let's just.
Right, like you're going to go too hard in the workout. And I know there's a lot of, just like from a medical guideline, there's things about like body temperature and heart rate and all those different things.
And so, I mean, I think they're there for a reason, you know, like, absolutely.
Yeah.
In like the 43 women I've coached for different pregnancies, I've never seen a mom that didn't naturally figure out what made them feel good, like what made them feel comfortable and what they felt they should be doing, you know? I guess that's not true. We had one mom one time that wanted to climb a rope and I was like, I'm not gonna do that.
No.
But in terms of like how much they should be lifting and how hard they should be pushing themselves, I mean, they get it. You know, they know what to do.
It's like an instinctive sort of.
Yeah. I mean,
reflex. Yeah.
Exactly. And so a lot of the other guidelines we have is basically, because pregnancies are so different, is helping address like, well, what's a good modification if you don't love rowing because it doesn't feel good. I hated rowing.
I mean, I hate rowing anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Well, so imagine if you only had like half the stroke length.
Yeah.
And then you're just sitting there like, you know, it's terrible. If you can't run because that doesn't feel good, let's pull a heavy sled. Just so many different things like that. So, but everybody's different. Some people are gonna be like, oh, I don't mind snatching past my belly with a barbell. It feels fine. More power to you.
Well, yeah.
You know, but some people are like, let's go to a dumbbell.
Yeah.
Great. It's more just having the resources there.
The options.
Yeah. Definitely the options.
So can you take us through the process of if you have a member who comes to you that says, hey, I'm pregnant, just want to let you know. How does that get handled at CrossFit Roots?
Yeah, I'm like, just go over to the treadmill for the next month. Or 9 months.
We'll see in 9 months.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so what we do is when they email usually, I like to have a meeting with them in person. Mostly just because I think it helps just be able to give them the opportunity to ask questions where it's not like in front of other people, right? So just 20 minutes, like,
right.
So we set up a meeting. In the reply email, I send them all these resources. I have like 6 resources, which I can send to you. It's like the scaling article I wrote, a podcast, a couple other things. And it's just sort of like, here's your packet.
And I'll link that too, so people listening can find it.
Yeah. I think it helps people be like, okay, there's a plan here.
Yeah.
Okay.
This has been done before.
Yes, exactly. I know. As my mom said, she would be like, well, people have been having babies for thousands of years, so I'm sure you'll figure it out. I was like, thanks, Mom. Oh yeah, that was that story though, actually.
Oh, we got sidetracked.
So, okay. So when Eric and I were going to have our first kid, we did like, everybody was like, well, you're going to take a birth class. And I was like, well, I guess we should take a birth class, you know?
That's what you're supposed to do.
Right. That's what you're supposed to do. So we sign up and we go. And the woman was like, okay, so we're going to start by going around the room and everybody please tell me what you're doing for exercise. And it was like the day before I had back squatted like 155 pounds for like 7 reps, but it felt fine.
Yeah.
And CrossFit had reposted, and of course there was all these comments or whatever. Yeah. And so I'm thinking about that. I'm like, well, I squatted yesterday. So, one woman was like, well, I did some light yoga today. And I was like, well, I'm just walking my dog each morning. And then someone was like, I'm not doing anything because I have felt ill. And and then we got to me and I was like, honestly, I was too embarrassed to say that I back squatted.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, I've been trying to stay active. Right.
Yeah.
So already I'm like, oh gosh.
Which I'm sure they're seeing you and they're like, oh, she's pretty strong. She's got to do something.
Yeah. But I was. Eric looked at me. He was like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't want to talk about it.
We don't want to draw attention to ourselves.
The woman was like, well, how many of you guys are here because you want to have a natural birth? At the time I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to do whatever is like the most like medically, what was it? The one woman, she was like, I want to do it as natural as possible using modern medicine when it is necessary. I was like, that's a great balance. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know. So, but everybody else raised their hand. No, they don't want to do any epidurals. They want all natural. I was like, okay, I better toughen up.
Yeah, I got to get on board with this.
I know. So then we keep going. And I'm still like, feeling not that comfortable. And then she says, okay, well, so the natural anatomical position of having a baby is the squat. So we're going to start by doing a squat.
And you're like, oh,
and I was
great.
like, oh, thank goodness. This is great. So, she didn't know any better, but she taught a squat, and it was not how we would teach a squat at all. But not a single person could get into the bottom of a squat.
Wow. And
I thought about it. Well, first I was like, we're not coming back. So we actually quit birth class. But both of our children were born and, we made it. But it was really fascinating because I think there's such a disconnect, right? So on one hand, we have a whole population of people that are like criticizing women doing CrossFit while they're pregnant.
Yeah.
And it literally helps develop the natural, squatting, CrossFit, and doing it while you're pregnant, develops a natural anatomical position for how people want to have babies or how they have babies naturally.
Yeah.
And then here, on the other hand, all these women that want to have a natural birth couldn't get there.
They don't have the tools. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I remember, so in family medicine, we do some labor and delivery. And I remember like one of the most amazing births that I was at. This girl, she must have been pretty young. It was a completely natural birth. It was her first kid. And she didn't do CrossFit, but she was like, oh yeah, I've just been doing like 200 squats every day, like in my backyard. I just want to be ready for this. And like, she had the most amazing, beautiful birth, like of anything that I've ever seen.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a doula at our gym. She doesn't go to the gym, but she's delivered like half the babies at the gym. And she's like, oh, you CrossFit moms, you get back to the hospital quick. Those babies are coming quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that was funny.
That's cool. Okay. So back to you have in-person meeting, you give them some resources.
So send them the resources in the reply email, schedule a meeting. If their husband's a member at the gym too, I'm like, or if they're not, I'm like, come on along, and we talk about how we go through the scaling sheet. It's on the CrossFit Journal. We can link to that too.
I'll link to that for sure.
And we go through what does the first trimester look like? What is second trimester? I give my phone number to them to be able to text me the night before if they look at the workout and think, what am I going to do? And I do that because I get you could do that for everyone for scaling. Like, what am I doing for the workout?
Right. Everyone's freaking out.
But I just want them to feel that there's not that extra barrier because it can be hard when you're like, you have morning sickness and you don't feel great, but you'll feel better if you work out to just be able to come in and have the plan.
Right.
So I give them my phone number.
And it probably is cool for them, especially now that you've had kids too, I'm sure that like you telling them what to do maybe means more than like someone else who hasn't had kids that's coaching that class that day.
As much as I hate to admit that, you're absolutely right. Like my male coaches who are 27 and 28, they're wonderful and they've done this a lot. But there's
nothing like firsthand experience.
Yeah, exactly. There's just a gap there, right? So I really give them my phone number. And I say, you can always text me if you're not sure what to do. And then we basically just kind of let them start. Oh, well, so then the next part is we say, when would you like this to be public information? Because a lot of women will email us and say like, I've told my husband and you.
Yeah.
And you're
they
like,
tell it because, because it's important because they don't want to do anything in the gym, but they're not ready to tell even like their whole family or their friends yet.
Yeah. So then we have like secret code. So like, and that's also why I give them my phone number because then I email the coaches and I say, hey guys, and it says top secret, so-and-so is pregnant. They're not public yet. If they, come in and are doing some modifications that don't look like what is offered, like just let them assimilate through class to do it. And so that's where the text message comes in really handy because now they have the privacy to say like, I can't do ab mat sit-ups. What should I do? I text them back. And then when everyone's warming up ab mat sit-ups, they can go do that. And the coaches are good about being like, oh, they're just, they need to do this because their abs aren't whatever. The problem is though, is like, as soon as you start doing side walking planks, everyone's like, I'm pregnant.
Right. That's like your code for pregnancy scaling.
But I mean, and we don't take out sit-ups within like the first 4 weeks. So, 5 weeks. And then after that, the big thing after that is I try to check in with them to make sure that we are meeting a stimulus for them and giving them good modifications so they feel that they got to work out. And so the difference with scaling for pregnancy is that, with general scaling, right, you scale to preserve the stimulus, which would include the intensity. Yeah. Right. With with pregnancy, we're saying, we're going to scale to preserve the stimulus, not including the intensity. So if it's like, a pulling motion, we might do a stricter pulling motion, which someone would say like, well, that's going to take them longer, but we're okay with that because we're not trying to make them breathe harder.
Right.
Stuff like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, how do you approach the postpartum period?
So generally most women will wait 6 weeks. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I think I mean, there's something to be said, I think, for just like being with your baby. And like,
I was just like, Stacey Tovar just posted, I think today.
Yeah, it was her 6 weeks.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, your body, I probably wouldn't have been this open or not open, like adamant about it, but it's like the stuff that happens to your body. It's like, and we talk about stress and like hormonal stress and neurological stress and then the baby. And it's like, you're not getting unfit, Right. Yeah. So
it's like, think about how much time it takes for things to heal, like just without even adding the extra stimulus of working out,
I remember I tried to do like 10 air squats at like this, 3-week mark with Harriet. And I was like, nope.
Not yet.
And then and then when I had Campbell, I don't know, she was like 3 or 4 days old. And I was like, hey mom, let's walk to the grocery store. It's like 2 blocks from our house. And we got halfway there and I was like, I'm really tired. And she was like, you had a child 3 days ago. And it's like, I think sometimes it's like this badge of honor, like, well, I do CrossFit. So like, therefore I'm gonna like rebound super quick and I'm gonna be like
right back. Yeah.
I will say, I think it's okay if we just differ those two things.
Yeah. For sure.
So 6 weeks. And then generally they will email and say, hey, I'm coming back. Just wanted to check in. And I basically think of it as, okay, it took you 10 months to get there. Your body kind of goes double time to get out of it. Okay. So you can think like 10 months to get in, like 4 to 5 months to get out. And that's like for the initial postpartum stage, because a lot of women are still breastfeeding, right? Which means you still have relaxin and all that stuff. But really what that means is just don't do sit-ups. And the beautiful part is that it's really just working with whatever your body's intensity is capable of doing, right? Like, so a lot of women come back and the barbell just feels heavier, right? One thing I will say is that, and I kind of try and preempt it, although this was actually, I guess I preempted it more a couple years ago. Now I just feel like women are so like, I do CrossFit and I'm gonna make it part of my life no matter what. I don't have to say anything, but we had a lot of women in the first like 2 years or 3 years the gym was open, and they would have the baby and then they wouldn't be able to get back into the gym for like 6 months to almost like 9 months or a year. Yeah. And it's such a harder comeback. Yeah. And you can do it, but that's where it's like, if you can prioritize getting to the gym like Saturday, Sunday, so your husband or partner can watch the baby. And then you go to class, commit to going to class one other day during the work week. That will pay off dividends.
That consistency.
You know? Yeah. And it's hard, right? Like it's hard biasing, like I'm going to go to the gym twice on the weekend. But for a lot of people that helps just shift it for those initial couple months coming back.
For sure.
And then, just no sit-ups, toes to bar.
And you don't do kipping like for that initial postpartum period too?
So I do, as long as they have like a developed kip where they're not really arching, or it's, as long as it's a kip, it's not like a swing around the bar. Okay. And then, after like 4 or 5 months, it's sort of like, oh, you had a baby?
What happened?
And then by the time people have their second kid, it's usually like, what do you need me for?
Yeah, I got this.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think was the most maybe unexpected or like challenging thing about pregnancy or postpartum that from your perspective that you went through that you weren't necessarily anticipating?
Oh man, I think our second daughter, like once we had 2 kids that were under 2, that was I mean, I think every parent goes through this where like you have your first kid, they sleep pretty well, you're coming out of it, and then you have the second kid and you're like, oh my gosh, what did we just do? I think, I do remember like, and it was maybe one of the times where I was like, I need to maybe not travel for seminars. Campbell was like 6 months old and I went to India for a seminar. And I was breastfeeding. So I was like trying to pump, like going to India and back, to go to India for like a 2-day seminar, it's like a 6-day trip.
Yeah. It's a long time.
And I think postpartum, I was just like, it was too much.
It's a lot.
It was too much. And it's wonderful because Eric was always really supportive of everything. But I think both of us were like, that's too much.
Yeah. And by the way, back to Eric. So he eventually ended up coming on full-time at Roots too, right? So initially it was just you.
Yes.
And did he work the whole time for that same company that you were both working for? Okay.
Yeah, we got to a point about actually I remember the impetus, and we talked about it, but the impetus for him resigning from his job was that we had signed this lease for the 10,000 square foot space and I needed somebody to build it out.
Okay.
And what I didn't realize when Eric and I started dating and then opening the gym, that was just a gift, is that Eric is really good at building, fixing, and the technical side.
That's so handy.
I mean, we just, like, we need to make a website. Okay, I'll do that. Like we need to build boxes. I'll build beautifully stacked boxes with like a sand glue top so you don't slip. So he built out the whole gym.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So he still, he works. Yeah, we work together.
What is that like? What is that like? Also, just in anticipation of my own life right now. What is that like working with your spouse?
I think we have two things. I think we have very sort of, it's not different personalities, but I think we just have like our work relationship and we have our home relationship, and they're just different. And I think, I mean, honestly at work, this sounds terrible, but I don't connect, like we don't talk unless we have to about work.
Yeah.
Very rarely.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we'll be like, do you want to go get coffee? We'll go get coffee. But if I'm in the back office and I want to go work out, I'm not like, hey, do you want to come work out? Which is terrible, but we're kind of on our own schedule. Yeah. We know what we need to get done.
You're doing your stuff.
So that's always been nice. I think the other thing that really helped us is that, we have very different roles. And I think for a while we tried to like include each other in all the roles at the gym. Yeah. And then it was like, no, like,
you do your thing.
Yeah, you do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. And I'm not going to feel bad if I don't ask. And so that was like an added benefit there.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then at home, like, just family, kids, and
I mean, I guess now that you have kids, you probably are talking about the kids all the time, but like, did you find it hard to to like not talk about work all the time when that's what you were both doing?
Yes. I also remember that. So coaching is a very like outward facing thing, right? You're talking to people all day long, and you're offering things to them, and you're helping them. And before Eric quit his job, we would come home and I would just be like, and then we did this, and what about this? And I would just want to talk to somebody, because you haven't for the whole day, which some people say they just shut down.
Right.
But I was like, can we communicate
it's so
two
funny,
ways?
Because that's how Danny and I are. Like, I come home and I want to tell him about every single thing. And I think this is maybe just being female.
Potentially.
And he probably. And he's just like, dude, I've been like talking to patients all day. Like, can we talk about something else? But I want to tell him about like all the patients that I saw and like everything that happened. So.
And Eric, and that's the other part. I mean, the joke is that when I said I wanted to open an affiliate, Eric was like, okay, well, let's wait 6 months. And if you still want to do it, then let's do it.
Yeah.
You know, he's the patient one.
Yeah.
And I'm patient in some areas, but you know, I'm definitely like, I'll be driving and I'll be like, oh my God, we need to do a nutrition piece for this, and I'm going to, you know, figure it out right now. And it's like, oh my God, we're so far behind. Why haven't we been doing this? And Eric's like, chill, and then just go do it. You know, so he gets less flustered about stuff, which is probably good.
Yeah.
That
it's good
balancing.
to be balanced.
Yes.
Have different
We're
perspectives. That helps. That definitely helps. Okay. So speaking of that sort of thing, I want to talk about your planning.
Yeah.
Because I think this is seriously one of the things that impresses me most about you is your, just like how you get things done and how you are like always
I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, it's true. But
I came and visited you and it was like, oh, we're doing this and we're doing this. We're also doing this and we're going to med school. I was like, oh, right.
Well, I was thinking about when I came to visit you, and it was like every day there was just like everything was perfectly laid out and you had like a system and things were going. And so like, how do you approach your life?
Oh man. How do I approach my
maybe
life?
we could just say like, first, like big picture, do you have a system for thinking about goals, like short-term goals, long-term goals, things like that? Or how do you approach that?
I'm not a goal setter.
Okay.
Like there's like goals and objectives. I like pretty much operate in the objectives world. I think maybe, so I don't know if I set like big goals like that. They're kind of out there, and then I just keep chipping away at like things that I guess move me in that direction.
Yeah.
Like,
so you have like the direction, and then you're like, okay, let me just get these.
Yeah. Like I remember at one point, Eric was like, maybe one day you'll like grow and be a flow master. And I was like, I could never be a flow master. And then, you know, I gave the nutrition lecture, and then I gave what is CrossFit and what is fitness. And, you know, the objective was like do well at the lecture. And so then it sort of, and then it becomes where you're like, oh, this is a possibility, right?
That's so funny because I've been on seminar staff now for 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 6 years. Obviously working very intermittently. Yeah. And I always just thought like, wow, I can actually do a lecture now. And like, you know, there's no way, because, you know, my long-term, it would be amazing if I could ever give a nutrition lecture. Like that would be so cool. But I'm like, that's never going to happen because I'm just never going to work that many seminars. But now I'm at the point where it's actually feasible. Like I mean, it will still take several years at the rate I'm going, but I'm starting to see like, wow, that could actually happen. So it's funny the things you put out there. Yeah.
Of just like baby steps.
Yeah.
Get you. Yeah. No, I don't know if I have, it's interesting because so we can say my mom passed away this past year. So it's been a little bit of a, like, what's important and where do I want to go. And it was interesting because I had a really hard time being in the gym for a while, not because I don't love the gym, but I was like, I was in my head. It's hard. Right. But, I don't know. Like, I feel like the past 4 years it's been like having kids and then, you know, with my mom and, now I'm like I have a really, I'm in this really thankful phrase where I'm like, I have a really great life. Like, I love my gym. I want to make it better. That whole thing about being able to pick my girls up from school, like somehow we realized that goal.
You did it,
and I get them, you know, 3 days a week. I get them at 3:30. I take them to school a lot.
So cool.
Yeah. A really good friend of mine, she's a cardiologist, and we were talking outside our house the other night, and she was like, no one ever die on their deathbed is like, I wish I worked more.
It's so true.
And it's not that I don't want to work hard. I want to work hard, but I think that it's so easy to just keep chasing the next thing.
Yes.
And if the next thing is always work, then we don't focus on our family or relationships. Whereas like, if you thought like, I'm going to always chase the next thing with my kids or like my husband, like what does that look like? Is that our girls just learned to ride, 2-wheel bikes, with no training wheels. And so now we're like, we're not that far away from like mountain biking with our kids, which is something Eric and I love to do together. Yeah. And those things like I am seeing more that, well, it's not a goal. You do have to make the time for it. And, the more things that I take on, cause that's what happens in our space.
Right. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah. It's also cool to, sit in. Yeah. And so I don't know if I have goals, but definitely as my girls are getting older.
I think like when I guess it was a couple months ago on one of my rotations in residency, we went and spent like an afternoon at a senior center. And it's so different when you interact with people, like we know this from the gym, when you interact with people outside of a doctor's office, like you get to actually have more real conversations. Right. And we had so many conversations with these people who are 70s, 80s, and like they're getting this whole perspective on life where they're like, yeah, I wish I wouldn't have worked so hard. I wish I wouldn't have always been chasing money. Like once you can see your whole life and you look back on it, you realize that like working and money and like material things are just not where it's at. Like the stuff that you value are like your relationships and your experiences.
We use this app for our family budgeting as well as for the gym called You Need a Budget.
I want to ask you about that also. I'm so curious.
Well, and to your point, that we've been using it for 2 years.
Okay.
And for our family, it, in a really odd way, I don't know if I can articulate it, it made all of what you just said really clear to us. Cool. That like the material stuff wasn't what was driving the stuff that we loved to do or that we wanted to do with our family or the experiences that we wanted to have. And it was, I don't know, just like it really helped us kind of get to that place where we're like, yeah, we want to do stuff, and you can always work an extra day, or you can, figure it out.
We'll link to that too in the show notes so people can check it out. Okay. So a little bit about big picture stuff, but tell us a little bit about like day to day. Like how do you approach? It's like Sunday, you're getting ready for the week.
Yes.
Like, what's your
let's see. This past week on Sunday, we came home from a 2-week vacation.
Okay.
And I had to leave for the CrossFit Games on Monday morning. So naturally, I decided to rearrange our entire downstairs of our new house. So
like
we moved
great idea.
The dining room into the living room. All the living furniture went into the dining room. My dad was there. He helped us. He does Vitality at the gym, and he works out at Trident CrossFit in Virginia.
Lift lots of furniture.
No, but that's not a normal Sunday. So I always get up at 5 in the morning. So I always try to get to bed by like 8:39.
Okay. Perfect. We're on that schedule now too.
Yep. Yeah.
We're like old people.
Yeah.
It's so much better.
It's so much better.
Mornings are so great.
And I can be so productive, and I love being able to, I mean, that's how I get my kids at school, because I can work from like 5 to 7 until they get up.
Yeah.
So I've been really committed to not looking at my email in the morning.
I love that.
I read this book, and it was like about, being productive or whatnot. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try it.
Do you know what the book was called?
I don't remember, but I will look at it. It's like, it's not a book. It's like productivity planner.
Okay.
It's a couple, I think they live in Europe. I'll find it.
Cool.
But I read it, and I started using productivity planner, and it was all about like prioritize, like do the most important thing of the day first. If I do that, like my day just is so much better.
Yeah.
If not, it's like I've checked email like 7 different times, and I still haven't written the blog post, and the newsletter's not ready to go out. And I'm like, and it's 4:00, and I'm like, okay. So I don't know. I approach the week by basically saying like, what do the girls need? And like, what's our week look like? What's the rough in?
Yeah.
Then I always figure out when I'm going to work out. just because it's important to me.
If you don't plan it, it won't happen.
It won't plan. Yeah. And, when you're a coach, you kind of have to plan your workout and your sweating and you're changing, so you look presentable.
Yeah.
And then, so like 5 to 7 I work. The girls usually get up at 7-ish or I have to wake them up. And then I take them to school around 8:15. And then I get to the gym. And then gym's usually, I'm either there from 9 to 3 or 9 to 5.
Okay.
I mean, and so, I don't know. I don't know how I approach the week. I mean, I guess, okay, well, I know how I approach the week. I make sure that we have food for the week. Always. Even if we have to like go and buy, like, even if we can't prep food on Sunday night, I'll go to Whole Foods or whatnot and just buy like 5 cooked chicken breasts and like some pre-made stuff just to get us through Monday so that then we can come home Monday night and cook a bunch of stuff. So I make sure we have good food. And then just try and like, get the stuff done at work so that I can come home. I try and be pretty big stickler about like once I get home, I don't look at my phone or open the computer with the girls around. I think there's like this weird aura in the world, and like the second that I look at my phone, my 4-year-old throws a tantrum.
Yeah.
But she's not throwing a tantrum about the phone.
It's because you're not paying attention to her.
Yeah, and it's weird because it's not that
it's not like you were.
It's not like I was paying attention if I'm like chopping carrots.
Yeah.
But it's also like that's not who I want to be for my kids.
Yeah, and if you set the example, they're not going to be interested in the phone if you're not looking at the phone.
No, I know. And and we don't really let them, they get to watch Mary Poppins or Sound of Music on Fridays. It's a big deal.
Oh, those are good ones.
But we try not to, I try not to be on the phone.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a funny balance, right? Like, I do go to Sugarwad, at their offices in Highlands Ranch sometimes on Thursdays. So it's like a bigger day, but it is this funny thing of like, you get up, you go to work, and then it's like, you're at school pickup and you're like, okay, switch into like mom mode. And now we're like doing snacks and it's like it's awesome, lives, but you really have to like
separate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's cool. Do you think you got better at that since having kids?
I think I got worse and then I got better.
Okay.
Yeah. One of my friends this weekend when we were on vacation, she was like, you're a lot more laid back now. And I was like, that's so nice of you to say.
Like what was I like before?
Exactly. I think, I kind of mentioned like, you have these like ebbs and flows, and I think like I poured so much into the gym for like the first 5 or 6 years. Yeah. And then it was like, I legitimately didn't know what to do next, but I also, none of the nexts were interesting. Like we went down the route of like opening a second gym and it just like didn't feel right to me. So we dropped that. And then we went down the route of like doing some partnerships, and I was like, that doesn't feel right. And so, but I think sort of some of my like diligence on things took a lull with kids. And then now I feel like I'm just sort of on this like uptick where I'm like more motivated, more rigid, eating better, it ebbs and flows. Yeah. It ebbs and flows. And then we always go back to like sickness, wellness, fitness, right? Like if you live at fitness and you have a lull, you're fine. Yeah. If you live it well-ish wellness, you're not going to recover from something that sets you back, or it's going to be really hard to.
So true. Yeah.
It's a model, but it really plays out more examples in CrossFit in people's lives than I ever would have imagined.
Oh yeah. Well, this has been amazing. I want to start wrapping up. So there's 3 questions I ask everyone at the end.
Okay. Yep.
So first one is the 3 things that you do on a regular basis that have the biggest positive impact on your health.
Prep my food and pack it. I'm going to say this as one thing, but prep my food and pack it so that I'm consistent when I'm traveling. Like here at the games, I went to Whole Foods and I take food to the venue every day. Because just if you travel a lot or if you go on vacation and you add that all up, it's just so much out of your routine. I think it just doesn't keep me in like the place that I want to be.
For sure.
So,
and do you follow, I know you've been very like strict with zone and various other things. Like, do you follow any specific guidelines right now?
Generally I do macros.
Okay.
And with like totally varying levels of dedication. And when I can't do macros, like when it's just like I'm on vacation and I really do want to enjoy it, I just, I do like try and get tons of fruits and vegetables, like the 800 grams from EC's Optimize Me.
Yes.
And that helps me focus on like getting the right foods and quality. And that keeps me in a great place. It's just, it's feeling for more health. And if it's for more performance driven, the macro stuff helps me. But, so I just do the whole thing of like, piece of meat and then lots of fruits and vegetables. And it's amazing how many better choices you make by making that your,
That's so true.
your first.
So true. Okay. So that's one thing.
Yep.
Nutrition.
Yeah.
You have 2 more things.
Oh, no. I was saying like it's 2-part, like focusing on getting good food and then, but also, I mean, like prepping food, having good food, not letting that area of our life slack, and really, the more work you do at it, the more organic it becomes to all your choices.
For sure.
And then just when we do travel, like not trying to always have it be this like delineation of like traveling, bad food, not traveling, good food.
Right. Especially when you travel a lot, like you've had a history of traveling a lot with the seminars and all that stuff. So you probably just get really good at it.
Well, and I think it's an interesting thing, right? So like a lot of people that have jobs that they travel a lot, like there's like that whole like road warrior, like gain weight, like all that stuff. And I think I always thought seminar staff was a really incredible example of how it's not the travel, right? Because they're traveling all over the world all the time. They're packing their food. Nadia, Shatila, and I would pack baby food. I still do it to this day. Like if I want, to have like good food, like, you might not be able to take fruit to a foreign country, but you can usually have like some squeeze packs. So just like all those tricks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 things that you do that have a positive impact on your health.
Oh yeah. So first is packing my food. I was tagging on travel to that one.
Fair.
Yeah. Second is consistently working out, 5 days a week. I don't know the last time I know the last time I didn't work out 5 days in a week. It was when I had Harriet. And then I guess the second one or the third one would be, like just knowing when you do need a break, which I know it's like the whole thing, like push, and then it's like, actually back off.
It's hard. It's hard to know too for yourself, I think.
And I think like that comes with age and maturity and just being able, I think along with that is just like being confident in like what you need, but also being honest with yourself, which is what makes it so hard. But like an example is like on days that I travel, like if I don't work out before I travel, I don't even try and travel or work out after I get in. I don't know. But the consistency of the workout.
Are there other ways that you like allow yourself that relaxation or like when you know you need to back off? How do you do that?
I'll like go for a hike instead of, I'll just like kind of do something to clear my head. I like to read a lot. I'll go on a bike ride with the kids. I find that like with the years from traveling for seminar staff, like I didn't really know how to do a weekend, right? Because you're never there. And I remember like the first like 7 months, Eric was like, I was like, okay, so what do we do next? And I checked my email and he was like, we're just going to hang out. And I'm like, huh? Like what? So I think that kind of flows with it is like, taking time for yourself, knowing when you need to stop, but like letting downtime be downtime. It's something I'm getting better at. But I do find that like kind of the whole thing about like, you can always work more. The more downtime that I do take, the more productive and my batteries are recharged. And
you're probably more creative. You're like, it gives you space to think about how you want to use that time when you are working.
And this is what I find fascinating is that like when we went away for 2 weeks on vacation, it's the first vacation we've taken in a while. I like couldn't stop writing stuff down. Like of ideas that I've never thought of, or just different perspectives. And we can't get that when we're like stuck in the mix all the time. And so whether it's downtime or whether it's knowing when you need like to take a break or just do something different, it's okay. And there's really wonderful things that come out of that.
So true.
I know a lot of people are into meditating. I think when I've tried to do it, I think it's great. For me, it's just, I get a lot of maybe the similar stuff of just removing myself from whatever situation is, which isn't always possible, but you know.
Right. It doesn't always have to be meditating, but whatever it is that helps you to get kind of unplugged.
Yeah. That's the best way to put it. Unplugged.
So this may be what we just talked about, but my second question is one thing that you think would have a big impact on your health, but you have a hard time or you're working on it.
Full transparency. I would love to drink less wine.
Oh, that's a good one. I don't know if anyone has said that before.
That's no, I don't feel like I drink too much, obviously. But we were just talking about this like sliding scale. EC and I are going to do a talk on this at our gym. So, as women age, right? Okay, let me see if I can describe this quickly. Okay. So as women age, right, in your 20s, you're like, you have a lot more athleticism generally than like, you know, as you age.
As a master's.
Right. Exactly. as a master's. And so like, if you have 2 drinks, you can like spring out of bed the next morning and go work out and you're like, I didn't feel it.
Remember the training camps we did in college?
Exactly. So then you're like, you get to your 30s and you're like, you can kind of still pull it off, but maybe you can't like go dive as deep into that, you know, and whatnot. And then at some point it becomes like this circle that like just drives you further and further into the ground. And it's because you're like, as you age, you have less leeway. And the hard part is that as we age, we become more accomplished. We figured stuff out. And so in a way we're like, well, this should just be easy for me now. But unfortunately, it actually gets harder. And that's not because we're doing anything wrong. That's just a fact of aging. So to have like the same feel in our air squat, the same, you know, consistency in our Helen time, whatever it is, it takes more effort. And so when I say I wish I would drink, you know, I'm moving there slowly, is that I have found in the past 2 years that the impact that me having a glass of wine or two has on my productivity, my ability to spring out of bed the next morning, my ability to sleep well, all those goals that I have that are important to me are the things that I, you know, are those 3 things that I want to focus on with my health are impacted. And so, it's interesting because I've naturally sort of been having less wine just because it's that cycle, right? You wake up, you feel groggy, then you drink more caffeine, and then you kind of do the whole cycle over again. And I do think there's like a really interesting space in CrossFit now where it's like, we just have so many type A personalities that are so accomplished. And it's like, honestly, you have to work harder. And people don't want to hear that. But as you age, if you want to keep up all the amazing stuff, like, you're going to have to dial in your nutrition more. You're going to have to do all those things.
Be smarter about recovery and
exactly. And it's not the workout.
It's everything outside of that.
You know, everyone's like, oh, that workout made me super sore. I'm like, yes, but there's a lot of other factors. So I would probably try I am trying right now to limit it to more like social things rather than coming home and being like it, you know, it's just sort of what I also realize is that it's more of a habit than like something I actually like care about.
Right.
So I've been getting a lot of kombucha and putting it in my wine glass.
Yeah. It's so true. It's like,
it's really just the ritual.
Yeah. It's the ritual. It's so true.
So,
okay. Third question is, what does a healthy life look like to you?
I was thinking about this.
No pressure.
I think it's where you have long-term consistency with the things that drive your health. And I think that when you find a program, when you find a way of approaching food, nutrition, sleep, your relationships, when you find that those have been like consistent and sustainable for years, I feel like that's when you're really moving into like long-term health. Which is kind of where we're all trying to move, right? Like, yes, we could always all eat a little bit better. We could always, you know, do more, but it's more about, I mean, in a way it's more like if we could just be consistent at a pretty high level, we'd probably average out higher than the ups and downs. And I think that's a lot of what like I want for my athletes is just for them to be able to be consistent by having the tools and the resources and the drive to want to have all those pieces for them to look back and say, like, after 5 years, like, yeah, my nutrition's like pretty dialed in, or, I've prioritized working out for the past 5 years. I think that's, I don't know.
Super cool. Yeah. It goes a long way.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Yeah, we could probably talk for like 5 more hours.
We probably could. But yeah, I'm so glad that we finally got to sit down.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It was
fun.
And
you're such a great example for, I think, for me, for all CrossFit women and gym owners and everyone out there. So thank you for doing everything.
I've had a lot of, great influences. So yeah.
Of course.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey there, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. Of course, Nicole and I had a ton of fun in part B as well, and I had a couple of big takeaways that I wanted to close with. So first of all is that I love the approach that Nicole has been taking in partnering with her athletes from the very beginning of their pregnancy. I love that she establishes up front that she and her coaches are there for them. They're there to partner with them and find a way for them to be happy with their fitness throughout pregnancy, and also give them a lot of tools to do some of their own learning along the way. This is a topic where we still have so much to learn, but I really like how Nicole's blended her own personal experience, her experience of other experts, her experience coaching and scaling CrossFit for a variety of other situations outside of pregnancy, and then her experience coaching other pregnant women to develop information like a scaling guide that other women and coaches can reference. So using all of this information together and sharing it within our community is how we can all continue to move forward and create resources and continue learning and providing the best experience for pregnant women who are doing CrossFit. I also really liked our discussion about a little bit of change of mindset or focus that Nicole has had lately. And I like how she emphasizes the importance of focusing on family and relationships and goals in that arena with as much vigor as we approach our career goals. It's a blessing that we have careers that we really love and that we're passionate about, but that makes it all the more easy for us, I think, to become really wrapped up and for those careers to run your entire life. And I think she makes some great points about how important our relationships are and how easy it is to put those on the back burner because there's other things that seem maybe more urgent or more important at the moment. But making sure that we also make those goals for our family and our relationships and dedicate our enthusiasm in those arenas as well. To make sure you never miss an episode and to receive exclusive content from me, head to my website, juliefouché.com, and subscribe to my email list. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes. Also, don't forget to share your stories. If you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please send me an email at info@juliefouché.com. I'll choose some of these inspiring stories to share here on future episodes. Don't forget you can train with me through Beyond the Whiteboard by visiting trainwithjuliefouché.com. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on Pursuing Health.